Okay, welcome to today's show, and it's February the 8th, and we are looking at the TRIO protocol in terms of healing. And today we are going to dive into, of course, the cellular level activities that are taking place in the night and day, and why it is important to understand these things to help ourselves heal, recover, or even enhance our in total life. Of course, all this is played in context of epigenetics, which is our genetic um, our genetic model as human beings is fixed in stone. That is what is called the immutable record of the human capacity, which is what we get after the father and the mother comes together. There is a record that is created, and in this record I call it the master record. You have some things that are turned on and turned off because of the inheritance, as we say, of the epigenetic conditions from mother and father. Now, these are not different from human to human when it comes to what we call regular human beings. So the epigenetic master list is always there. I should have a diagram in the next video to discuss this. Um, and the what is turned on and what is turned off from the are activated and deactivated is what we inherit from our parents, and that entire record list is what might be fixed in stone, meaning it's written upon the stone. Now, what we are trying to do when we get from that model, that record, the all the cells, it's the cells who get baptized, who are created, we call them stem cells in science. We take a copy of that record fixed in stone and then we move into our own framework. So we have a record that is a copy of the immutable fixed in stone record, and that is the record that gets changed dramatically or drastically by our environment, whether it's internal, external, our environment. We have the power to change that. So the original record from our mother and father is written in stone, but the other record is written on paper, and that's where we could change something that is turned off, something that's deactivated. There are three switches: neutral, deactivated, and there is on, meaning it's an activated switch for the genetic code to play, and then there is the off switch, which means this genetic code was well, maybe it was on, something turned it off. And so that is where we look at the trio protocol. Now, the Trio protocol, as you know, is the protocol that says our body is the focus, the temple. We are trying to repair the temple, and in every circumstance, you don't have to be unwell to be thinking Trio protocol. You are basically infiltrating this framework in your mind to say to yourself, okay, so everything is about to repair, everything is going to be repairing after stimulation ceases. So what we want to do is figure out what is this stimulation, and A here speaks about stimulation, which is point number 2 on the pinkish side here, which is all that we are doing during the daytime specifically, or during the time of activity. Some people may have a lot of activity at night, so daytime is not consequential here. It is consequential when we go to the metabolic cellular level and we look at the cells and we see the mitochondria. They are more active in the day. They support activity in the day by creating the ATP. They spore on activity. That's why it's important to have activity, and that comes along with the sun being a critical component to trigger mitochondria stimulation for activity. Therefore, the daytime is our daytime of stimulation. So whatever you are doing during the day is highly of a stimulatory nature. It doesn't matter if you walk, you hike, you cuss a bad word, you have a good conversation, you laugh, you drink, you eat glucose, you do something else. Whatever you're doing is a form of stimulation upon the body in the day. When that stimulation ceases, then the body is now said to be in a state of rest. That's what we say. And rest here does not mean deep sleep. It means you are now putting the body in a state of lower, from a heightened state, titrated down to a state where the body could say, oh, here I have a little opportunity to enhance or upgrade some cells or strengthen some cells. And that's where the process of the cellular level activity, which is called protein creation or protein synthesis, the ribosomes are coming up and doing some job. Now, even though in the day you have some protein synthesis taking place, you have to think about it from the activity level protein synthesis mechanism, meaning that the proteins that are made in the day are proteins that would be And again, the word protein here is when amino acids come together, and this only happens by amino acids coming together inside cells. They are synthesizing or joining up small Lego blocks to make specific shapes, and these shapes are called protein, human protein, and these are the things that heals us. These are the things that causes us to do everything from movement to talking. A lot of the hormones, a lot of the enzymes, they are all protein. Insulin, um, protein. In the day, we are making a lot of activity level or activity, so putting protein, myosin, actin, and many others. Even GLP-1, because we are eating a lot in the day. So GLP-1, GIP, all these proteins or peptides, they are actually amino acids coming together, and these things are happening during the day. So in the day, all these things are stimulation upon certain cells of the body. And so when we go into a deeper state of rest now, that is the state of rest, sleep, rest, evening time. The mitochondria goes into a lower state of activity. Doesn't mean that they stop. They go into a very low state of activity. Now, the consequences of understanding this knowledge means that we have to appreciate that in the day, mitochondria is very good at consuming what we call the input glucose, which is what we get from all plants. When we eat plants, we digest it, it becomes glucose. It doesn't matter if it comes in as fructose to the liver. Once it is supplied to the liver as fructose, the liver does some conversion and ultimately it becomes glucose. We do have some metabolic um, issues where we see a lack of dehydrated state would cause fructose to store as fat, so as to, again, when fat gets stored, a lot of that could be reconverted through a process in the future, again, to become energy substrates. Now there are many energy substrate. Glucose and then fatty acids are the main ones. Now the glucose is supplied by the liver from the glycogen stores and from reversing fat and amino acids. But there are also substrates that are coming in that might be created inside the body to help with the energy production. Nevertheless, in the day, we have mitochondria in most of us right now because we are very high in eating carbohydrate based diets throughout the world. We have a lot of glucose coming in, and in the day, that could be fine once our glucose is complemented with what? Vitamin C, and vitamin C is complemented with B1, B2, and B5. Now, these things we need to just understand. That's why when we eat a fruit, we don't bother ourselves because it has glucose, it has fructose, but then it has the complementary vitamin C, it has the complementary B1, B2, and I think B5, and whatever else it comes with. And in the cascade of life, these have to be provided together because glucose, when it is being metabolized, again, in the day, highly metabolized, you have a high amount of reactive oxygen species coming from the cells itself. Now, the vitamin C would deal with the little ROS. It would help donate an electron and stabilize the ROS. But it itself, vitamin C, when it donates something, it needs somebody to donate to it. So with a B1, a B2, or whatever, they come and donate to stabilize vitamin C. Now, what is happening in the day is that we are consuming a lot of glucose and we are creating a lot of reactive oxygen species, which is another stimulation on this at the cellular level. Stimulation. Now, when we go into the night time, evening towards the night, we are now saying, okay, so if mitochondria is honestly working in the day, so at a higher titrated level, higher level, and in the evening it's bringing down its activity level to support the development of um, lack of energy production, but it itself goes to rest. We have to start thinking, okay, so should we be supplying so much glucose into our gut via the gut channel, from the mouth to the gut channel up to the liver in the evening to the night when we are going into that sedated state? Now, the sedated state means a state of rest, and the state of rest means sleep. Now, when we go into the sedated sleep, it means we come from work, we have been up and down in stress, we had whatever we did, we come and we chill down, we go behind our computers or phone or tablets, whatever we're doing, watch our TVs, and we are sitting, we are sedated. The body now is saying, I'm not gonna make so much, or the mitochondria saying the light is, the sun is going down, I'm not gonna be taking my time and be making so much glucose. That guy is going to rest. But the guy would have had some sort of plant-based product in the evening. Now, when I say plant-based, you have to split plant-based into the whole plant-based and then into the refined plant-based, which is supermarket plant-based versus the foods. He's having glucose. Once it comes from plant, that is glucose. We can't sit here and say, well, I'm not drinking table sugar, I'm not drinking this. I'm not. No, it's glucose. Refined glucose is the worst glucose. Whole glucose is better because it comes to the vitamin C, the B1s, and so forth and so on. That's like the fruits. Starchy vegetables and stuff, again, is another form of glucose that doesn't come with much vitamin C. The fact is, we sit in the evening and we consume our plants and we see we had a nice little evening meal, or we consume something like in my case, lentil peas soup, and say, well, we had, a beautiful lentil peas soup that tastes so good. And that is not the point. The point is you just had plants which would provide a high amount of glucose molecules into the bloodstream at night, where the mitochondria are saying, this guy is going to sleep, I don't have time to be creating ATP. No, I created my ATP during the day. Now you go into that state, and here comes the what we call the rest, the night. And so the ribosome starts coming out, getting the signals from the nucleus. Again, the nucleus has a copy of the genetic code, and the nucleus is saying, okay, to send a message across to ribosome and tell him to make protein X. Now protein X gets this message to make ribosomes get this message to make protein X. And ribosome says, I need amino acid A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So it starts its work, and it comes and it asks, and somebody brings another transporter. That's a little helper called tMRA, and it brings the amino acid. It pulls in, makes a protein, and the protein is dropped into the cell for its delivery. Some other kind of delivery mechanism has to be created so the protein could go where it has to go to heal the body. So the healing process starts. Who is causing the healing to take place? Of course, it's the nucleus. He is instructing who? The ribosome. When is that taking place? When you are in a deeper state of rest, sleep. Why is this important to know? Well, it is important to know this because when you go to sleep in that state of rest, your body is now demanding the amino acids because the nucleus is demanding of the ribosome to make protein, human protein. And so when the ribosome gets instruction, the ribosome cannot manufacture anything out of the air. It's not a magician. It's a concrete mixer. So it says to the entire system, can we get some A, B, C, D, E, F, G amino acid? Bring it to me. I'll put it into my system and I'll stamp it out, and I'll join it like a big long chain. And I call that the protein. Does it make a mistake? It doesn't make a mistake. What it do, it starts a process sometime, and it cannot get the next amino acid, so the protein that comes out is a halfway made protein. That's one issue. But the bigger issue is it may have generated this, made a beautiful protein, and yet for you have placed a lot of glucose into your bloodstream via your mouth, via the gut, because you eat a plant-based diet in the night. And so these glucose molecules are lingering in your bloodstream. So if you are an active person at night, let's say you stay up a lot, in my case, computer work, you may not see any blood related issues like high blood pressure. You may not see high blood glucose sugar in the night. If you especially like get a continuous glucose monitor, you would not see that because you are active. And so because you are active, your mitochondria could use glucose in the night. But when you go to sleep, we are speaking about a person who would go to rest. And so it's important to understand point number 3, that our source of nutrition has to be cut into 2 components, night and day. So the framework of this understanding is clear as night and day. Now this is made with Canva, not paid version, so you'll see I have a little thing there. Thank you. Now in the cells, there are 2 primary categories. No, that's just from a framework, so this is not scientific or anything. The framework is the night and day situation. In other cultures, we see the yin and yang, meaning that in the day, let's start with the day because that's how we are throwing. In the day, we are doing energy production, so hydration is important because we are doing energy production, right? That's the mitochondria, and therefore the glucose could be metabolized. Of course, you can't say when glucose is being metabolized that in the daytime the metabolism would not create the reactive oxygen species. It creates it anytime glucose is run through this mitochondria here. ROS, reactive oxygen species, would be created. That is not if or but. It doesn't matter the day or the night. The issue is that in the day, if you eat a whole plant food, that has the vitamin C, which is the antioxidant, or other antioxidants, then you are supposedly holding on some, breaking down some damages that could be done by this ROS. Now, that's that's okay, but not the best, of course, because the energy production, cleanest energy production apparently, is from the burning the mitochondria, the same mitochondria, taking in fatty acids or fats and consuming it and making like a cleaner source of energy, higher amount of ATP, whereas the reactive oxygen species, they do get created, but it's a lot less than with the what we call the burning of glucose, or the metabolism of the glucose molecule. So the glucose molecule is important, yes, for the muscles. That's who should be consuming the glucose. And at the mitochondrial level in all the other organs, maybe the fatty acids are for energy production is the best. And that's not how we are living right now. So we have to be very much cautious that when we are consuming anything from the store that has a plant-based product, it has glucose, and once we are putting glucose in our mouth, we have to consciously say to ourselves, is it containing vitamin C? Is it a fruit? It has vitamin C. A lemon, it has vitamin C. So how do we improve on our glucose control? And it's not really the glucose control, it's the glucose getting consumed and metabolized here too, and the little ROS coming out. How do we help control the ROS, which is the missiles that will damage the cell? We say we need some vitamin C, vitamin B1, so forth, and we study the fruits. We'll look at that in a subsequent video. Now, this is the daylight process, and in the nighttime process, it seems like the restoration, healing, the creation of protein. Again, we have to be cautious with this word protein. Protein is something that the body has to make from amino acids. You do not eat protein. You could get an injection that would put protein in the blood. That is like your insulin injection. That's insulin is a protein. GLP-1 is a protein. There are many other proteins. They call them steroids and peptides. You could juke yourself with a needle and get those protein directly into the bloodstream. However, protein is created by these little guys called ribosomes, who got the instruction from the nucleus as to what protein to make at what point in time. Now, it does not mean that ribosomes are not making protein in the day. Yes, we said earlier on ribosomes are working in the day, but their activity is for creation of movement protein, energy type protein, things to move, myosin actin. But in the night, it's the healing protein. How many proteins do these guys make? Well, you don't know and I don't know. How many substrates that comes to the mitochondria? Glucose, fatty acids, lactate, other sources, about 3, 4, 5, 6 sources, maybe more. What do they push out? ATP. What's ATP? The energy of the body. So the phosphate, the triphosphate. But wow. So the mitochondria is basically making energy. Yes. How many different type of energy? One. But the difference with the energy creation is, if you burn or if you metabolize glucose, you might get, they say, 29. If you with a lot of ROS, if you metabolize fatty acids, you are getting a lot more than 29 ATP with smaller amount of ROS. Now, when you look at this guy here, the ransom, or the ribosome, the mixer of amino acids, and it spills out concrete or protein, he does not know what he's making. He's given an instruction from the nucleus. That is where this whole messenger comes down to it with the RNA. The messenger RNA comes and say, here is what you're making now, make. He's just gonna make, and he could make maybe 500,000 different type of combination of amino acids from the 22 or the 9 essential amino acids plus the others to make up 22. That is a combiner. And this combiner box here takes in, let's say, 9, and it could make a plethora of different combination. 9 to the power of something, I don't know, the combination. It could go on and on and on, because your epigenetic environment, internally and externally, could signal to the nucleus something is going on, and the nucleus knows how to respond by telling the ribosome, spin this new responsive protein. It could be a new protein forever. So if you check my protein, you would not find blah 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 different to yours. Epigenetics, the genetic code that is turned on, determines that by sending the message to the nucleus. The nucleus sends the message to the ribosome. The ribosome does this work. But the healing takes place in the night. So when you are sleeping, that's what these little guys are doing. They are getting messages to heal you, and they are making this little thing called protein. These little drops, little molecules. Now, if you eat, as we were saying, you eat the substrate for the mitochondria in the evening, and it goes in your bloodstream, and the mitochondria says, I am not going to do anything because you are sleeping, you are not active in the night. Let's say you're not active. That's where the glucose molecules start messing up on the outside of the cell. When the protein leaves the cell and gets right, when the protein leaves the cell, so let's say that this little mitochondria are sleeping, the red are sleeping, but the purple is your protein makers, and the maker protein, let's say, is a little black and it leaves the cell, so it's coming out of the cell to go to the bloodstream to say, I'm going to travel to that place that need healing, let's say your big toe, and it's going out into the bloodstream. When it gets out into the bloodstream, bam, all the sugar molecules are like traffic jam. Why is the sugar molecules, those glucose molecules, like traffic jam? Well, remember, this guy is sleeping, he's not consuming glucose, and your muscles is not consuming glucose. So for the organ cells, glucose would come in because of insulin, another protein, and for the muscle cells, when you are moving, automatically GLUT4, or they say there is some transportation that sucks in, the muscle just sucks up the glucose. But the glucose is, you are sleeping, so nothing is sucking up glucose. So the protein comes out to go down to your big toe. It has to come to the pipe called the bloodstream, and then the bloodstream will bring it to your big toe. But on its beautiful way outside of the cell, it's now in a traffic jam, and all the traffic is heading in one direction, starting to squeeze that protein, and when they start squeezing it up, so the protein start becoming the shape outside of the cell. It could be the shape inside when you have glucose that enter inside, but we are just saying get outside, and this protein cannot make it down to the big toe because of the glucose we consume in the evening. Feel free to reach out. This is my broadcast for today. I hope this was not instructive, and I hope this would cause you not to think. But whatever you do, feel free to reach out, leave a comment. Do not like no video. I'm not here to get any likes. I'm here to give the story of my situation, and I remind myself that to heal, we have to follow a very standard procedure, which is called the TRIO protocol. If you want a copy of the TRIO protocol and the framework, the link is in the bio. You could have a copy.